Drizzle whispered across the wooden stoop as Lila Hayes stood trembling beneath it. Her small suitcase burst open, clothes scattered down slick steps like fallen petals. Grant Hayes filled the doorway, shirt wrinkled, breath sour with late whiskey. Monica Vale lingered behind him, a thin smile tracing cruelty across quiet lips. "Get out," Grant shouted. "You are not my child, not my burden." Lila hugged her patch bear, knees stinging, voice small yet still stubborn. "I can be quiet," she said. "I can sleep near the door." "No," Grant growled. "Your mother is gone, and I will not carry weight." Across the street, curtains stirred. Eleanor Brooks watched, one hand covering grief. Frank Brooks stood beside her, helpless, their porch light shivering in rain. A steady voice crossed the yard like lantern light finally reaching cold water. "Enough," it said, and the gate clicked once against its iron post. Adrian Cole stepped forward, cream suit, rain spattered, eyes calm and unafraid. He lifted the bear from a puddle and brushed it dry gently. He set it in Lila's arms and softened his voice into promise. "From now on, you walk with me," he said, patient and sure. "If this beginning moves you, please like, share, and subscribe to support kindness. Leave your rating for this story and speak a word for Lila." Grant stiffened, jawed a stone, anger wrestling the ache behind his eyes. "Who are you," he hissed, "to teach me about my own house?" Adrian did not retreat. Rain moved around him with a measured breath. "This home once held a woman who sang," he said, "and loved. Her child will not learn winter on your steps this Boston night." Monica touched Grant's sleeve, syruped words hiding a hard, glittering intention. "Let the lawyer play hero," she murmured. "The papers are nearly finished." Lila lifted her chin the way her mother taught during frightening storms. She looked at Grant, hoping he would blink, remember, and gather her close. Grant looked away, swallowed hard, and shut the door upon remembering. The latch fell like a hammer, echoing down the narrow, watery street. Adrian bent, gathered clothes, and closed the zipper with unhurried care. He offered his hand. Lila set her small palm carefully within it. His skin felt warm, ordinary, like a doorknob holding afternoon sunlight. They walked to a waiting sedan, wipers ticking a gentle heartbeat. Inside, the heater whispered. Fog unwound itself from the windows slowly. Adrian buckled her seatbelt, checked it twice, and then once more. "My name is Adrian," he said, "and I knew your mother." Lila whispered her name back, afraid it might crumble within air. She clutched the bear and watched rain braid down the glass. Adrian drew a tarnished compass keychain from his pocket and paused. "When I was small, someone brave gave me direction with this. When darkness crowds you, hold it, and remember you are seen." Outside, Eleanor stepped onto her porch and called clearly through weather. "She did nothing wrong," she cried. "We will speak if anyone asks." Adrian nodded, grateful, storing the witness like a carefully sheltered candle. The car rolled from the river road toward the stones of Beacon Hill. Street lamps pooled honeyed light. Cobblestones glittered like patient, watchful stars. Lila breathed slow, naming colors to steady herself against unraveling fear. "Vanilla," she whispered, "because Mom loved vanilla on Sundays beside water." Adrian heard and slowed the wipers, as if listening with her. Somewhere behind them, a bar door opened, letting laughter spill wide. Monica's silhouette paused in light, talking low into the humming rain. Grant stood alone inside the house, forearm pressed hard against wood. His breath hitched once, but evening still kept its answer hidden. Adrian turned the corner toward home, the compass warm in Lila's fist. She felt the needle twitch, pointing somewhere past tonight's bright streets. She swallowed, then asked, barely audible, "Will he try to take me back? Will he follow tonight?" Rain followed them to Beacon Hill, clinging to the narrow cobblestones as Adrian Cole led Lila into the tall brick building that overlooked the Charles. Inside, Mrs. Whitaker, the housekeeper, had already prepared soup, bread, and warm milk. She greeted the child with a gentle smile, no questions asked, her presence as steady as the tick of an old clock. Lila sat at the polished table, her bear in her lap, staring at the steam rising from her bowl without lifting a spoon. Adrian sat across, his voice slow, carrying pieces of his own hidden history. "When I was your age, I had no one either," he said. "I grew up in an orphanage. The world often turned its back, but your mother never did. She brought me books, warm coats, a few coins when no one else cared. She gave me hope when I had none. Lila's eyes flickered at those words, her fingers tracing the bear's worn ear, as though weighing the truth against memory. Across the city, Grant Hayes slumped in a bar's corner booth, Trevor climbed beside him, pouring another drink into the hollow he had built inside. Monica Vale entered with her usual flourish, a red dress drawing attention she never lacked. She slid into the seat, laying a manicured hand over Grant's wrist. "Sign the papers," she whispered, her voice coated in honey. "North Harbor Consulting will manage everything. You'll be free." Trevor chuckled, nudging the glass closer, but Grant's fingers paused on an old photo inside his wallet. A frozen afternoon sun, his wife's arm around his shoulder, little Lila's smile in between. For a fleeting second, his chest cracked open, but Monica's voice coiled tighter. "Don't drown in ghosts, just sign." Back at Beacon Hill, Adrian rose and brought out a small box from his study. Inside lay a tarnished compass keychain, the metal dulled but unbroken. "Your mother gave me this," he said softly, "when I was afraid of losing my way." He placed it in Lila's hand. "Hold it when you're scared, and remember, you are not lost." Lila stared at the compass, her lips trembling, then slid it under her bear's paw, as if asking it to guard the memory. That night, Detective Nadia Cruz sat alone in the Harbor Light bar, ball cap low, eyes fixed on Monica's movements. Her phone recorded every whisper, every slip of paper, every half-drunk word that pointed toward betrayal. The clock on the wall struck midnight, its chimes swallowed by laughter and clinking glasses. Outside, rain thickened, but Nadia did not move. The next day would demand proof. In Adrian's home, Lila lay in the guest bed, the moon-shaped lamp casting a pale circle on the ceiling. She whispered into the dark, "Was my mom afraid?" Adrian answered gently through the half-open door. "She was afraid she would not see you grow, but she believed good people would find you." Lila pressed the compass into her palm until it left a mark, then finally closed her eyes. Adrian stood watch, the photograph of her mother beside his hand on the desk. His phone buzzed. A message from Sophie Lynn. "Detective Cruz has movement. Evidence soon." Adrian typed only 3 words back. "Keep me posted." He glanced once more toward the quiet hallway where a child slept, then whispered to the photograph, "I promised you." Somewhere across town, Grant's pen hovered over a line of ink, and Monica's smile sharpened as Trevor slid the paper closer. Morning broke gray over Boston as Adrian Cole buttoned his coat and guided Lila toward his waiting car. She clutched her teddy in the compass, her eyes searching the street as though danger might step out of every doorway. At the clinic near Cambridge, Dr. Ava Green greeted them gently. The office smelled faintly of chamomile, and shelves brimmed with picture books and wooden toys. Ava knelt, meeting Lila's eyes at level. No tests, no harsh questions, just quiet drawing, soft crayons, and small sentences. Lila sketched a house with 3 figures, a mother smiling in the center, herself on the left, and a man on the right turned away. Ava nodded, made a note, and whispered to Adrian, "This child carries weight no child should." "We will prepare a report." Across the river, Eleanor and Frank Brooks sat at their kitchen table, voices steady as they signed sworn testimony. "We saw her begging," Eleanor wrote, "and we heard Vanessa say, 'Let him be.'" Their courage formed the first stone in Adrian's case. Detective Nadia Cruz, meanwhile, filed her late-night photos, Monica leaning close, Trevor pressing the pen into Grant's hand, Brianna Knox slipping the envelope into Monica's purse. Nadia's notes were precise. Time, date, exact phrases. She knew patience was her strongest weapon. Back in Beacon Hill, Lila sat quietly by the window, tracing the compass edge against the glass, as though trying to draw a new map of belonging. Adrian crouched beside her. "There are people ready to stand for you," he said. She whispered back, "What if Dad signs and I disappear?" Adrian's voice steadied like a keel in water. "Then we stop the tide with law." That afternoon, Victor Hale spread folders across his office desk. His dark eyes scanned each page, the Brooks testimony, Nadia's surveillance, Ava's initial notes, Adrian's sworn statement. "It's enough to request a temporary protective order," Victor declared. "We'll file today." Adrian nodded, his jaw set. Behind him, Lila drew another paper boat on Victor's notepad without asking. The outline was shaky, but held steady across the page. Victor smiled faintly, sliding the sketch into a protective sleeve. "Every piece matters," he said. Outside, cold wind bent the street trees, scattering the first yellow leaves into the gutter. In the bar across town, Monica lifted her glass in triumph, believing her scheme nearly complete. Grant sat hollow-eyed, the papers already marked with his shaky signature. But Nadia was still there in shadow, her camera quietly flashing. Proof was coming, and the tide was shifting. As Adrian drove Lila home that evening, she asked softly, "If we fight, will the judge even listen to me?" Adrian kept his eyes on the road, but his hand brushed gently over hers. They cannot close their ears to truth spoken by a child. Lila clutched her bear and stared at the skyline, a fragile hope flickering beneath the weight of fear. In the courthouse ahead, silence and gavel waited, but so did Monica's sharpened smile and Grant's unfinished redemption. The Suffolk County Family Court smelled faintly of polished wood and rain-soaked coats as Adrian Cole guided Lila through its heavy doors. She clutched the compass in her bear, her small steps echoing across the marble floor. Judge Miriam Stone presided with calm authority, her voice steady as she reminded all present the child's safety was paramount. On one side stood Adrian and attorney Victor Hale, with Eleanor and Frank Brooks seated firmly in the back row, their presence like quiet anchors. On the other side, Monica Vale swept in draped in crimson confidence, Colin Pratt at her side, his briefcase brimming with papers. Grant Hayes followed, collar rumpled, eyes clouded with fatigue. The first strike came swiftly. Colin rose, sliding a document across the table, announcing a psychological evaluation declaring the girl unstable and prone to fabrication. Lila shrank back, her face pale. Victor stood, brow arched. "Your Honor, the defense refuses to name the author of this so-called report. Without identification, it cannot be evidence." Judge Stone tapped her gavel lightly. "Noted. It will not be considered unless verified." Monica's smile wavered, but she leaned toward Grant, whispering venom. "Just nod when they speak," she hissed, "or we lose everything." At that moment, Detective Nadia Cruz stepped forward, her voice cutting through like a blade of light. "With the court's permission," she said, "we present recordings taken last night at Harbor Light Bar." The screen lit up, grainy but sharp enough. Monica's voice pressed against Grant's ear. "Sign, and the girl disappears." Lila gripped the compass so tightly the metal dug into her palm. The room stilled. Even Grant's shoulders sagged beneath the weight of his own weakness. Victor spread additional pages, bank transfers, each arrowing from Sarah Hayes' estate fund into North Harbor Consulting, registered under Brianna Knox. Brianna herself was called to the stand, her lips trembling as she confessed Monica ordered the shell company, the money moved through her hands, and the child's removal was part of the plan. Monica shot to her feet, shrieking denial, but Judge Stone's gavel cracked sharp. "Order!" The gavel's sound carried finality. Adrian bent low beside Lila, his voice low enough only she could hear. "Your truth is stronger than their lies," he said. She nodded once, though her knees shook, and lifted her chin. In the gallery, Eleanor wept quietly, while Frank held her hand, whispering steady breaths. At the defense table, Collins scrambled, demanding the court focus on verified documents. Yet the weight of fresh evidence pulled the balance of power away. Monica's face flushed red, her mask of composure cracking at the edges. Grant covered his face with both hands, the ink on his signature still burning in memory. Outside, thunder rolled, the storm pressing against the courthouse windows. Inside, silence held like a held breath. Judge Stone finally spoke, her words sharp yet measured. "This court will examine further evidence, but the child will not be dismissed." At that, Monica's lips twisted into a silent snarl, her plans slipping like sand through open fingers. Lila whispered to Adrian, barely more than breath, "What happens tomorrow?" Adrian placed his hand over hers, firm and unwavering. "Tomorrow," he said, "we face them head on." The courtroom felt like a held breath the next morning, every bench filled, every eye fixed on the small girl clutching a compass in one hand and a worn bear in the other. Judge Miriam Stone called the hearing back to order, her gaze sharp as glass. Attorney Victor Hale rose first, steady and deliberate, requesting to hear the child's voice. Adrian Cole bent close to Lila, whispering, Just speak what you remember. Nothing more. Lila nodded, tiny shoulders squared, then stepped up to the stand. Her voice trembled at first, then grew steady as she spoke of a Sunday at the Charles River, her father folding a paper boat from a receipt, telling her the wind would carry it to where her mother stood. She described vanilla ice cream dripping into her hand and her father laughing as he wiped it clean. Each memory was laid down like bricks in the foundation of truth. Grant Hayes froze in his chair, his knuckles white as the memories surged back. The laughter, the ice cream, the receipt still crumpled in his old wallet. His eyes brimmed, the whiskey fog cracking to reveal regret. Across the aisle, Monica Vale hissed sharply, "Tell them she lies, Grant. Tell them it never happened." But Grant could not. He bowed his head, voice hoarse. "I abandoned my little girl. I let myself be misled." The courtroom gasped, murmurs rippling like waves breaking. Colin Pratt scrambled, objecting, his tone desperate. Judge Stone silenced him with a single rap of the gavel. Detective Nadia Cruz stepped forward, submitting the full bar recording. Monica's voice spilled into the room once more. Sign, and the girl disappears. The sound hollowed the silence, leaving only Lila's shallow breath. Eleanor Brooks rose from the gallery, voice quivering yet firm. I saw her kneeling. I begged him not to, but the door still closed. Frank nodded beside her, his voice low, steady as a hammer. The child begged, and they turned her out. Monica snapped, slamming the table, her polished mask crumbling. You're all against me. Her words cracked through the air, venom replacing charm. Judge Stone's eyes narrowed, noting every unguarded outburst. Adrian wrapped his arm around Lila's shoulders, shielding her from the eruption. But Lila lifted her chin again, speaking softly into the silence. You used to be the best dad. Why don't you recognize me anymore? Her words struck like a bell, resonating in the hollow spaces of Grant's heart. Tears broke free down his face, no defense left to cling to. The storm outside lashed against the windows, but within the courtroom, the storm had a face and a name. Monica, cornered, spat blame at Brianna Knox and Trevor Klein, but their own trembling confessions had already been sealed. The balance shifted fully. Truth had pried the mask away. Judge Stone ordered recess until morning deliberation. The gavel struck once, sharp, echoing against wood. As the room emptied, Lila clutched Adrian's hand, whispering with fragile courage, "Will the judge keep me safe tomorrow?" Adrian met her eyes, voice as firm as stone. "Tomorrow, the truth will guard you." The courthouse lights burned late into evening as Judge Miriam Stone reconvened with firm composure. Evidence now lay heavy: the bar recordings, the bank transfers, the neighbor testimonies. Brianna's and Trevor's reluctant confessions. Monica Vale sat rigid, her painted smile cracked beyond repair. Colin Pratt shuffled futile notes, his defense unraveling like wet paper. The gavel struck once, commanding silence. After reviewing, Judge Stone declared Monica guilty of fraud and asset manipulation, her co-conspirators bearing civil and criminal liabilities. Dawson's falsified report was struck from record, and the court would notify the board. Monica screamed betrayal, but officers steadied her wrists as the courtroom swallowed her fury. Lila clung to her bear, eyes wide, watching every thread of deceit unravel. In the same breath, Judge Stone turned toward Grant Hayes. The man stood hollow, voice cracking with shame. "I do not deserve to be called father," he whispered. Yet Lila's gaze wavered. "I can't forgive you yet, but I don't want to lose you again." The silence weighed, then Judge Stone announced the arrangement. Temporary guardianship shared between Adrian Cole and Grant, supervised by a court-appointed social worker, Janet Wu. The child would remain in Boston, therapy ensured, with safety prioritized. Janet stepped forwards, her calm presence like steady tide, laying out visitation, counseling, and reports. Adrian nodded firmly. Grant lowered his head, accepting a second chance as a burden and a vow. Weeks slipped into months. Each Thursday, Grant arrived on time at Janet's office, sober, soft-spoken, carrying the small silver pin from his support group. He returned to woodworking, his hands finding rhythm in carving and sanding, slowly reshaping his broken edges. Lila met Dr. Ava Green regularly, at first silent with crayons, then gradually speaking of her mother's voice, of vanilla ice cream and paper boats. In Adrian's home, life built its own quiet order. Night lights left glowing, Doors never fully closed, dinner steady, laughter tentative but growing. One evening, Adrian signed the papers founding Compass Trust, a fund in Sarah's name to aid children displaced by loss. Victor Hale handled the filings, Sophie Lynn the accounts. Adrian paused, the compass warm in his palm, remembering a promise whispered at a hospital bed. On a bright spring afternoon, Adrian and Lila walked to the Charles Esplanade. She wore a new white dress, sunlight spilling across her hair. On the bench beside her sat a paper boat folded fresh and a cup of vanilla ice cream already melting. Grant appeared at the path's end, shoulders squared, eyes clearer than months before. He stopped, drew a steady breath, and spoke softly. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want to be here every day as long as you'll let me. Lila looked down at her bear, then at the compass, then at both men standing like two halves of her history. Her hand hovered, unsure. The river breeze carried the faint sound of laughter, tugging at the paper boat until it nearly slipped. She caught it, held it firm, and whispered, maybe it's time to try again. The sun lowered, painting the water in gold, but the answer of tomorrow still waited unspoken. Spring lingered soft along the Charles River, sunlight spilling across water like scattered coins. On the esplanade, Lila Hayes walked slowly between Adrian Cole and Grant Hayes, her small hands gripping each of theirs. Her teddy bear was tucked under one arm, the compass dangling from the other. David's voice, hoarse yet steady, had promised change, and for months he had kept it. Each Thursday, he showed up, sober, carrying the same wooden pin from his support group. Adrian, ever present, remained her anchor, the man who kept nightlights glowing and doors ajar so she would never fear shadows again. Now the three walked together, not seamless but stitched by fragile threads of effort and hope. At the water's edge, Grant unfolded a paper boat. His hand shook, but he placed it carefully on the river, just as he once had years ago. The current caught it, carrying it outward as Lila whispered, maybe Mom can still see. She looked up, her lips trembling, but lifted in a small, fragile smile. Adrian knelt, brushing a loose strand of hair from her cheek. You have two fathers now, he said gently. One who gave you memories, and one who will guard your future. Lila squeezed both hands tighter, her voice quiet but resolute. Then I will try to trust again, because I think Mom would want that too. Behind them, Janet Wu observed from a respectful distance, closing her notebook with a soft nod. Words were no longer needed. The picture spoke enough. The late afternoon breeze wrapped the trio together, broken chords retied into a new song. For the first time in months, Lila laughed, a sound light enough to ripple across the river. Some wounds remained, but the path forward opened wide. Her family was not what it had once been, but it was a family still, and sometimes starting again was enough. If you believe in second chances, in love rebuilding what was lost, share this story and subscribe for more. Perhaps your comment today might be the lantern someone else needs tonight.